Hey everybody, it's Coach Hart here with System Basketball. I did a clinic for you guys the other night on 5-out dribble drive motion offense. This short little video here is explaining some of the dribble drive that I use from the clinic. If you'd like to get the full clinic, you can get it in the link in the description below. Make sure to subscribe here to the YouTube channel of System Basketball for other great clinics, film breakdowns, and the Baskopedia podcast. We'll see you on the next one.
Benefits of dribble drive motion offense. Typically, your team may be full of guards. I've coached varsity basketball for 20 years, and I've never had a player over 6'5". And typically, I'll have one. Or actually, I've had a player 6'5" on a team, and I had two in 2010 and one the last 2 years. So I don't know if that's the magic potion, but those are my two best years coaching. We won 23 games with two 6'5" guys, 23 games with one 6'5" guy, and 24 games with one 6'5" guy. It allows you to put your best players on the floor. Vance said why he went to it. Typically, if you're playing 7 or 8 guys, you were playing a post that didn't belong on the floor just because it fit your offense and you were trying to play 3-on-2. So why it allows you to put your better players on the floor, regardless of size. Again, it creates long closeouts. The nature of driving and kicking puts people in help situations and creates long closeouts. Analytically, it creates the best points per. My opinion, it does, because you're constantly penetrating and your kids are getting rhythm threes. They're not getting screens coming off or shots coming off screens and having to pivot or hop turn their shoulders. It's like when they're a little kid, their dad's underneath the basket, just throwing a pass back out to them and they're stepping right into their shot or hopping into their shot. It develops players. Whether you run it on the varsity team or not, I would suggest that you run it with your lower level players. More kids touch the ball. It develops players. You don't have to have 10 kids in practice, 12 kids in practice to have a practice. You can still do your dribble drive actions and techniques regardless of how many players you have in the gym. It's not dependent on a 5-man continuity. It teaches players how to play the game. It teaches spacing. It teaches cutting, teaches playing off 2 feet. Lots of offenses do it, but it's not religious on running plays. Do you need some sets or entries? Yes, you do. If you're not adding those, then your dribble drive is going to be stagnant and probably easy to defend nowadays since everybody knows about it. My studies have shown when we get our 3-pointers, it's usually off penetrate and kick actions. It's not offsets. It's off of getting into the paint and kicking. This is my definition of dribble drive. It's just an organized way to play basketball off of penetration by spacing and creating gaps. Can do this by playing out of these formations: 3 out, 2 in, 4 out, 1 in, 5 out. I've messed around with all of them. Everybody believes that you can only do it out of the 4 out in the dunker spot. That's probably the one that most people will use because it gives you a guy near the basket. But 3 out, 2 in probably gives you the biggest gaps to drive and penetrate. 4 out, 1 in, next biggest gaps. 5 out, the least gaps. Why 5 out? You probably have a small team. Your top players are perimeter oriented, want to pull the other team's defense away from the basket, want to open the paint. Not everyone can play off the bounce. So why I switched to it a few years ago is I had a 6'3", 6'4" center that could really shoot the ball. and I had 6'5" player that could play all 5 positions and do it all for me. So what we decided on was we wanted the 6'5" kid to go inside as well, and we wanted the 6'4" guy to be able to stretch it on the perimeter because he could shoot it. So it allowed the multi-talented guy to have a lot of options. What I believe it allows you to do as well is it allows you to have specialists on the floor. If he's a rebounder and can't deck it, then you just tell him he's a pass and cutter. He's a pass and spacer. You don't have to have everybody on your team being able to stretch it and deck it. It fits your team. Nowadays, kids are watching the NBA. Everybody wants to be positionless. They want to play on the perimeter. They want to be the Giannis. They want to be Kevin Durant. They want to be, for us older guys, Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki, Anthony Davis now. I mean, the advantages of playing 5 out: can put your best players on the floor regardless of size, makes defense guard you horizontally and vertically by the cutting and everything. I believe it stretches the floor even more. Makes post players have to guard perimeter players. Makes you positionless. Makes all players develop perimeter skills. Can post up anyone. You'll see few clips later that we really had 3 guys that could score it for us on a couple years ago, and we allowed them to post or play on perimeter. So those 3 guys had a lot of freedom within our 5-out dribble drive. My 5-out dribble drive rules. So I can almost call this read drive motion because you're not going to be seeing probably a lot of just penetrating. You're going to be seeing a lot of passing, cutting, moving, and scoring off of cuts. But we're not a traditional 5-out team. We do not set screens other than ball screens and occasionally back screens and flare screens. So I took Rick Torbett's read and react and traditional DDM and blended them together. It started off as an experiment that went wrong, where my players knew dribble drive first. So then when I decided I wanted to go 5-out, for anyone familiar with Rick Torbett's stuff, he uses a term called circle movement. And that is the opposite of what dribble drive does. His term for that is reverse circle movement. So me trying to teach them 2 things turned into a cluster. So we basically made up these rules. If you pass, you cut. That's probably a 90% of the time rule is you need to pass, you cut. You finish your cut majority of the time and empty the logical spots. We do run some cuts where we're not finishing and making basket cuts. If denied over read line, you cut back door. The read line is the 3-point line. So if anybody's out there denying you, you're just going to cut and create gaps. If dribbled at, we cut back door. You can limit what players are allowed to do. For example, they can be only a pass and cutter. You may need a kid for rebounding. And you think the 5-out fits you and you don't want to just put them in the dunker spot.
Hey, thanks for joining me on this video. I took a deeper dive throughout the whole clinic on half court, more rules for you, how we played out of the transition, missed shot, made shot, and delayed break. So if you like what you saw, links in the description. You may want to come and check out the clinic. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one.